Hey there everyone, and welcome back to another walkthrough series. In this video we're going to deal with reading passage 3. It's called Telepathy. So telepathy is basically a communication of thoughts or senses where you just pretty much think and you just communicate with one another. So basically what we're going to do here first of all is that we're just going to read the whole text first, and then we're going to jump to the questions. So we have matching, not matching, but sentence endings, and then followed by finally table completion. We have table completion with the word no more than 2 words. Alright, so let's get started. Since the 1970s, parapsychologists at leading universities and research institutes around the world have risked the derision of skeptical colleagues by putting the various claims for telepathy to the test in dozens of rigorous scientific studies. So the word rigorous is kind of really fancy and really kind of really not really academic, I would say, but rigorous means really careful examination. The results and their implications are dividing even the researchers who uncovered them. Some researchers say the results constitute compelling evidence that telepathy is genuine. So someone is believing that this one is actually legit. Other parapsychologists believe that the field is on the brink of collapse. So the brink of collapse, let me actually make it a blue color. So brink of collapse means close to failing. So close to failing or close to failure, whatever you name it. It's just going to fall down. Having tried to produce definitive scientific proof and failed. Skeptics and advocates. Skeptics and advocates alike do conquer on one issue, however, that the most impressive evidence so far has come from so-called Ganzfeld Experiments, a German term that means whole field. Reports of telepathic experience had by people during meditation led parapsychologists to suspect that telepathy might involve signals passing between people that were so faint that they were usually swamped by normal brain activity. So basically, what is it saying here is it's just normal, just not a normal, but a word called faint. So fainting means how to say the word fainting actually means like barely perceptible, right? So what is actually also another word perceptible here is it could be barely perceptible. Perceptible means it could barely be seen, right? So the word faint is that they didn't really they were feeling weak, all right? So they were feeling weak, that they were usually swamped. So the word swamped means to give something too much that they cannot deal with. So they're saying that passing between that were so faint that they were usually swamped by normal brain activity. So they were giving about a lot of information, something like that. In this case, such signals might be more easily detected by those experiencing meditation-like tranquility in a relaxing whole field of light, sound, and warmth. So the word, we know the word, really fancy word we can use in our IELTS speaking called tranquility. So tranquility is a state of being quiet and peaceful. The Ganzfeld experiment tries to recreate these conditions with participants sitting in soft reclining chairs. So soft reclining chairs is one of those chairs that our beloved mothers, they sit there and just usually do their own tasks such as sewing, listening to relaxing sounds while their eyes are covered with special filters letting in only soft pink light. In early Ganzfeld experiments, I'm going to highlight that, the telepathy test involved identification of a picture. So they wanted to identify a picture chosen from a random selection of 4. So there were 4 pictures taken from a large image bank. So a large image bank is a website. It could be a website, it could be an application, no matter if it's a phone application or a software for the computers or Mac users or whatever the type of computer you have. So a large image bank is a platform where only pictures are published. It could be Pinterest. It could be I know the only fancy one that I pretty much use myself as well to get several ideas. It is called Pinterest, but there are thousands. If you do some research, you might find it easily. The idea was that a person acting as the sender, so acting as a sender, would attempt to beam the image over the receiver, relaxing on the sealed room. So the word beam, the image, means to show. That's a beaming is a line of light. To beam the image means to show the image over the receiver, over the receiver. Want to highlight that real quickly. Relaxing in the sealed room. Once the session was over, this person actually is referring to receiver, was asked to identify which of the 4 images had been used. Random guessing would give a hit rate of, so hit rate is a success rate. Hit rate of 25%. If telepathy is real, however, the hit rate would be higher. So if they're saying if this actually telepathy existed, it would the percentage of the success rate would be higher. In 1982, so I'm going to highlight that, the results from the first Ganzfeld studies were analyzed by one of its pioneers, the American parapsychologist Charles Honerton. They pointed to typical hit rates of better than 30%, a small effect, but one which statistical tests suggested could not be put down to chance. All right, okay, so the implication was that Ganzfeld method had revealed real evidence for telepathy, but there was a crucial flaw in this argument. So the crucial flaw in this argument, meaning there was a flaw means it's like really not perfect, or let's say not perfect, not correct. So there was important inaccuracy in this argument. One routinely overlooked in more conventional areas of science. Just because chance had been ruled out as an explanation did not prove telepathy must exist. There were many other ways of getting positive results. So we have positive results. There were many other ways. So they're saying that there are many other ways. These ranged from sensory leakage. Sensory leakage, we know that leaking means exposing, showing the secrets, where clues about the pictures accidentally reach the receiver, to outright fraud. In response, the researchers issued a review of all the Ganzfeld studies done up to 1985. I'm having a hard time to read the numbers, I guess. 1985, to show that 80% had found statistically significant evidence. However, they also agreed that there were still too many problems in the experiments which could lead to positive results, and they drew up a list demanding new standards for future research. After this, many researchers switched to auto-Ganzfeld tasks. So there we go. An automated variant of the technique which used computers to perform many of the key tasks, such as the random selection of image. By minimizing human involvement, the idea was to minimize the risk of flawed results. Once again, to lower the chances of failing. In 1987, results from hundreds of auto-Ganzfeld tests were studied by Honerton in a meta-analysis, a statistical technique for finding the overall results from a set of studies. Though less compelling than before, the outcome was still impressive. So what they're trying to say that researchers used the auto-Ganzfeld test, and their objective was to lower the flow results by minimizing human involvement, where they were using computers. And this was done by Honerton, where he used meta-analysis, a type of a technique that could be deduced to finding the overall results from different kinds of studies. So, yet some parapsychologists remain disturbed by a lack of consistency between individual Ganzfeld studies. Defenders of telepathy point out that demanding impressive evidence from every study ignores one basic statistical fact. It takes large samples to detect small effects. If, as current results suggest, telepathy produces hit rates only marginally above the 25% expected by chance, it's unlikely to be detected by a typical Ganzfeld study involving around 40 people. The group is just not big enough. Only when many studies are combined in a meta-analysis will the faint signal of telepathy really become apparent. And that is what researchers do seem to be finding. What they are certainly not finding, however, is any change in attitude of mainstream scientists. Most still totally reject the very idea of telepathy. The problem stems at least in part from the lack of any plausible mechanism for telepathy. We remember the word plausible. That means reasonable or agreeable or likely to happen. Various theories have been put forward, many focusing on esoteric ideas from theoretical physics. They include quantum entanglement, in which events affecting one group of atoms instantly affect another group, no matter how far apart they may be. So while scientists, like there's a inaccurate intonation I use, no matter how far apart they may be. So like, while physicists have demonstrated entanglement with specially prepared atoms, no one knows if it also exists between atoms making up human minds. Answering such questions would transform parapsychology. This has prompted some researchers to argue that the future lies not in collecting more evidence for telepathy, but in probing possible mechanisms. Some work has begun already, with researchers trying to identify people who are particularly successful in Otto Ganzfeld trials. Early results show that creative and artistic people do much better than average. In one study at the University of Edinburgh, musicians achieved a hit rate of 56%. Perhaps more tests like these will eventually give the researchers the evidence they're seeking and strengthen the case for the existence of telepathy. So, what I'm doing here is my strategy involves where I first of all read the whole text. So, I am a really good. I would say, I wouldn't say really good, but I can remember stuff really quickly while I read. It could be like silenced, or if I read it out loud, I can pretty much remember that. So what I'm going to do right now is just I'm going to first of all solve the questions for the table completion because sentence endings, they require a little bit of more time. Since we have to pay attention to the details, as they are paraphrases from the text that were taken from here. So they're paraphrases when we have to use our vocabulary skills. Okay, I would say that a large bank of vocabulary. All right, so we have Ganzfeld studies in 1982, and we have Otto Ganzfeld studies 1987, and I remember that. So 1982, we gotta search for that. All right, so what do we have? 1982. Okay, we have 1982. There we go. I'm gonna highlight that now with a green color, and then I remember there was somewhere 1987. There we go. So now it's time for us to find the answers. All right. Involved a person acting as a someone who picked out one something from a random selection of 4 and a something who then tried to identify it. All right, we already remember that. We already did that. So a person acting as there we go. We have a sender. So I'm going to highlight that. So involved a person acting as a sender. So we're going to make it red and highlight that. Who picked out one something from random selection of 4. We remember that it was telepathy test involved identification of a picture. So picked out something from a random selection of 4 and the something who then tried to identify it as someone who. So it's a person, one something. So it's in some sort of an item they're choosing for us from a large image bank. So the telepathy test involved identification of a picture. So we have it. So it's I picked out one picture. I guess it's the answer is going to be picture. So let me actually choose a little bit more dots here. Picture from a random selection of 4. Of course, we have a random selection of 4. But there we go. Random selection of 4 taken from a large image bank. Who then tried to identify it. And this person was asked to identify which of the 4 images had been used. This person, we know it is referring to a receiver. So the answer is going to be what? I guess it's going to be receiver. So let me just take a receiver, and I'm going to make it as red. And then hit rates were higher with the random guessing. We know the random guessing hit rate was higher. Now we're gonna highlight that as well. And positive results could be produced by factors such as, okay, so we have, many other ways are like factors. So positive results, these ranged, so they were separated. There were sensory leakage. There we go. We have a sensory leakage. sensory leakage. Sensory leakage. And we're going to take that and put it as red as well, or something. So sensory leakage, where clues about the pictures accidentally reach the receiver. 2, we have a hyphen here. 2, outright fraud. So we have or outright fraud. There we go. And then now we're left with number 36, words used for key tasks. And we remember the key tasks was here. There we go. I mean, guys, it's really good to have a habit of reading quickly, because you can when you're reading a lot, I mean, a habit of reading, I'm referring to reading more and more to try to understand a lot of contexts, or like contents from websites, or it could be even books. The thing is that I sometimes read something that is not interesting that is not aligned to my own interest, but also, I mean, I read something that I am interested about, but I also involve myself something I'm not interested about. So which led me, of course, to learning about neuroscience recently. So yeah. So what happened was something were used for key tasks. So an automated variant of the technique which used computers. We remember something were used. Okay. Computers were used, and we know there's a computers, the word as, we have plural, and we have another plural were. So computers were used for key tasks to limit the amount of something and carrying out the tests. Was to perform many of the key tasks, such as random selection of images. By minimizing human involvement, the idea was to minimize the risk of flawed results. Hundreds of autonomous tests were studied by. Okay, so what was so computers were used for key tasks to limit the amount of something in carrying out the tests. So we have, so the idea was to lower down the risks of failing results, and which used computers to perform many of the tasks, such as by minimizing human involvement. Oh, okay, so the human involvement was used. Human involvement. I'll take that and write human involvement. The results were then subjected to a. All right. Yet some parapsychologists remain disturbed by lack of consistency between. Okay, so the results were then subjected to a what? Okay. We gotta read that a little quickly, and in a normal rate, I guess. At a normal rate. So the results were then subjected to. In 1987, results from hundreds of Ganzfeld tests were studied by Honorton in a meta-analysis, a statistical technique for finding the overall results from a set of studies. So, okay, we have the answer. Meta-analysis. Meta-analysis. There we go. So we have the answer here. Meta-analysis. We have meta-analysis. Let me take that. The something between different tests results was put down to the fact that simple words were not, as with most Ganzfeld studies. Okay. So we're gonna between different tests. So yet some parapsychologists remain disturbed by lack of consistency between individual Ganzfeld studies. So different tests results was put down to the fact that sample groups were not. Okay. The friends of Telepathy point out that some demanding impressive evidence from every study ignores one basic statistical fact. It takes large employed samples to detect small facts. So I know that the group was not big enough. All right, so I know that it was not big enough. Big enough. Whoops. I'm gonna take that. So, but the something. What was it? Ah, okay. Between different sets, lack of consistency we have. lack of consistency. Lack of consistency. Okay, now we're left with 27, 28, and 29. All right, I think it's gonna be pretty hard here. But I remember differing attitudes. I remember there was a differing attitudes here. And as I highlighted before, different attitudes are skeptics and advocates. So researchers with differing attitudes towards telepathy agree on what? Skeptics and advocates alike do conquer on. So the word conquer on means to agree on. To conquer on means agree on one issue. However, that the most impressive evidence so far has come from so-called Ganzfeld experiments, a German term that means whole field. Okay, right. So that is pretty impressive here. So what is happening here? The discovery of mechanism for telepathy. No, it wasn't necessarily talking about the mechanisms. It's saying the most impressive evidence was so far has come from the Ganzfeld experiments. Most impressive. So needed to create a sustainable environment. Their claims of a high success rate as solution to the problem posed by random guessing. The significance. Okay, this some kind of seems real for me. All right, I'm just gonna take that for now, and I'm gonna highlight that with this. So I think a more careful selection of subjects. I need to keep altering conditions. No, so we have E, option E. And I think it was red color I was using all the time. Let me use that. You may ask the significance of the Ganzfeld experiments. If you ask why exactly, because the word here, what was it? I just literally lost that again. That most impressive evidence so far has come from the so-called Ganzfeld experiments, the German tool. Reports of telepathic experience had by people during meditation led parapsychologists to suspect that telepathy might involve signals. So, you know, it is what they're trying to say is that researchers were amazed by Ganzfeld experiments, a German term meaning whole field. So if we say the significance of the Ganzfeld experiment, so they of course the most impressive evidence is the significance of the Ganzfeld experiment. It came so far from, so has come from is just it's just a kind of a term that says the significance. So of all the experiments that they have done so far, the best result came from Ganzfeld experiments. So you just have to know how to make inferences here. So many people will understand in a different way, but I feel that they're saying that there were thousands or maybe several. Let's say they just used the term several. They were using several experiments, and the most impressive or the best result came from Ganzfeld experiments, a German term that means whole field. All right, and we're going to remove that. So, oh no, okay, I wouldn't really remove it. So, reports of experience during meditation indicated, and we know that there was a meditation here. There we go. Reports of telepathic experience had by people during meditation led parapsychologists to suspect that telepathy might involve signals passing between people that were so faint that they were usually swamped by normal brain activity. In this case, such signals might be more easily detected by those experiencing meditation, like tranquility in a relaxing whole field of light, sound, and warmth. Okay, so the word literally tranquility, light, sound, and warmth is peaceful. So we know tranquility is a state of being quiet and peaceful and relaxing whole field of light, sound, and warmth. Of course, it's talking about suitable environment. That is the most obvious answer, I guess. All right, we're going to take that as well, and we're going to remove it. Here, we're going to remove that. There we go. Whoops, not red, but black remaining, and remove it as well. All right, now attitudes to parapsychology would alter drastically with. All right, and okay, so we have to do. So the word attitudes to parapsychology would alter drastically with. It was somewhere right here. So attitudes to parapsychology. There were some sort of attitudes. I remember that the word was attitude. This is getting a little bit hard to find them, is it? All right. Oh, there we go. Any change in attitude mainstream scientists. There we go. So what they are certainly not finding, so we says that attitudes to parapsychology would alter drastically, change at a maximum rate with what? What they are certainly not finding, however, is any change in attitude of mainstream scientists. Does it really change? Is obviously alter. But we have the word mainstream, which plays also another role. So mainstream means mainstream scientists are like they are like conventional scientists, like the important scientists. So and the problem stems at least in part from the lack of any plausible mechanism for telepathy. So plausible mechanism for telepathy, I guess the discovery of mechanism. So all right, so basically, so what they're saying that the problem stems at least in part from the lack of any plausible mechanism for telepathy. So the attitudes, so what they're saying that the attitudes to parapsychology would alter drastically if there's going to be if there's going to be a very reasonable mechanism for telepathy, a mechanism that would obviously take place. So the answer is going to be A for us. I'm going to highlight that. My mark it as red. We're removing this one as well. There we go. And now we're left with recent Otto Ganzfeld trials suggest that success rates will improve with. Okay, recent Otto Ganzfeld trials suggest. Okay. Otto Ganzfeld trials suggest that success rates will improve. Just have to really skim really quickly. Some work has begun already with researchers trying to identify people who are particularly successful in Otto Ganzfeld trials. The early results show that creative and artistic people do much better than average. In one study at the University of Edinburgh, musicians achieved a hit rate of 56%. Early show, okay. Some work has begun already with research trying to identify people who are particularly successful in Otto Ganzfeld's trials. Particularly means exactly. Early results show that creative, so we have creative and artistic people do much better than average. Much better than average, they're talking about other people. In one study of the University of Edinburgh. Musicians achieved a hit rate of 56%. Perhaps more tests like these will eventually give the researchers the evidence that they are seeking and strengthen the case for the existence of telepathy. So this means that the success rates will improve. The success rate will improve if they are going to select a particularly successful people. So they chose creative people, artistic people, and they chose musicians. And out of all these three, so let's say these three groups of people were doing much better than the average people. So, and they're saying that the musicians, however, on the other hand, musicians were doing much better in comparison to all of them, and its hit rate was 56%. So what they're doing is that their claims of high success rate, a solution to the problem posed by random guessing, no, more careful selection, probably, I need to keep alternate conditions, I need to keep no. So the answer is going to be F. So look at that, we did this, and we're going to remove that one as well. So highlight that, and there we go. So there you go, guys. We are finished with the passage 3, test number 1. If you have any questions where you might maybe didn't understand why exactly here, why exactly you couldn't use, I mean, not that fact that you couldn't use, but why I used words, how did I find the words like sender, picture, receiver, and many more stuff like that. You can easily just literally leave questions in the comment section below. I will get as soon as possible, and I will try to provide the best approach. I will just give you the easiest and oversimplified answer for your question. So yeah, if you find it helpful, guys, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful time in the future.